But when it comes to taming this filly, he really has a bronco by the tail.
I think that she should have gotten an Oscar for her performance, because it had such variety in the performance, and was funny, but also very, very touching. I was amazed that she didn't get more credit for that film than she did.
Welcome to A Word on Westerns. I am Rob Word, and I love Westerns, and obviously you do too, or you wouldn't be joining us today. And today we have an Oscar-nominated leading man, is Mr. Don Murray. Welcome, Don. Your first film, your very first movie, you got an Oscar nomination for Best Actor opposite Marilyn Monroe in Bus Stop. Yeah.
And just look at the guy who ropes Marilyn. Introducing Hollywood's newest hunk of man, Don Murray.
Now, that's sort of a Western because you're like a rodeo guy, too.
I was a cowboy.
And was she, at that time, as awkward and nervous about performing as she appeared to be later?
Yes, she was very. But she, that was her comeback film. She left films for a year to study acting at the Actors Studio in New York, and this was her comeback film. So there was a lot of attention paid to her. There were always press on the set, and there was always a lot of people around her. She was a large entourage.
Well, you both got really good reviews in that film too, I think. But
I think that she should have gotten an Oscar for her performance, because it had such variety in the performance, and was funny, but also very, very touching. I was amazed that she didn't get more credit for that film than she did.
It must have been very hard for her to try to break away from just being a sex symbol.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Being your first film, what did it feel like with all of the crew, the camera, and the press surrounding Marilyn? Was that hard to adapt to?
Well, what was really difficult was that she would, doing an emotional scene, she'd get off her marks because she'd be thinking the emotions of the character, the marks being a little tape that they put on the stage, and you're supposed to come into a scene and stop on the mark. And that's what keeps you in focus and also in the lights. And Josh Logan said to me one day, he said, Don, you know, Marilyn's very, very excited, and she's so much into the role that she keeps on getting off her marks. So whenever you see her getting off her marks, just put your hands on her hips and just move her into her marks. And I said, sure, do my first movie in a cowboy accent when I'm a New Yorker, and move Marilyn Superstar onto her marks. And I said, makes a lot of sense to me.
But when it comes to taming this filly, he really has a bronco by the tail.
That probably a lot of you don't know about. It's one of my favorites, and it's a classic. It's called From Hell to Texas. That film is a classic, and Henry Hathaway directed it, and there's always been these rumors about Dennis Hopper being blacklisted because he wanted too many takes from Henry Hathaway. What's the real story behind that?
Well, I think it's a little bit more than that. He resisted Henry's direction and made it very, very difficult for Henry to work with him. And he would curse him out, you know, on the set, and really behaved very, very badly. And until Henry Hathaway came and talked to me about it and asked me, what I could do. So I went over and talked to him, and he afterwards behaved himself.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, you're the man. That had a wonderful cast, and film has so many great things about it, not just the great locations, but at that time, Kirk Douglas was always finding an Indian princess in the river taking a bath, or Burt Lancaster would come across a woman in a bathtub, and Diane Varsi comes across you.
Not nearly as romantic.
Well, I don't know, for the women out there, it might have been. The role that you played in that was sort of a low-key, naive cowhand who was so handy with a rifle that I think Sam Peckinpah must have seen that film and come up with the Rifleman series, because you're spinning that thing, you're knocking people off, and it's just a wonderful concept that we hadn't seen before in movies.
Well, that was thanks to Rod Redwing. He was the one that taught me how to use the Winchester rifle like it was a pistol. He had me doing all sorts of tricks with it. And as a matter of fact, for the Rifleman, that was the producer, who was also an actor, saw me rehearsing and doing the tricks with it, and he got the idea of making a movie based on a guy that could do all these tricks. And then he wanted me to do the movie, but I was under contract at Fox, so I couldn't do it.
The character that you had in the relationship with Diane Varsi, it really, really works. It was so sensitive and so credible. What was your relationship with her like?
Well, she was a good actress, very, very serious about her work. And she had, along with my then wife, Hope Lang, they were both nominated for Academy Awards for Peyton Place. And she, shortly after we did that movie, she actually left films. And she retired too early, because she was a very, very good actress.
Well, you had a great cast in that as well, and usually Chill Wills just chews the scenery too much, but he was good in that.
He was wonderful.
Yeah.
I love Chill Wills.
But the very best is so strong always is R.G. Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
As Dennis's father. Oh, no wonder Dennis was mad all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and Hathaway picked on Armstrong for some reason. He criticized him just terribly.
They picked on R.G.?
Yeah.
R.G.'s a giant of a guy.
He's a giant, yeah. See, Hathaway's no sissy, he picked up big guys, yeah.
Well, maybe he picked on him to make him mad, because that sure came across.
Yeah, it probably did.
Yeah. And the action was good in that movie, too. You looked really handy on a horse. Where did you learn to ride?
I learned from the fellow that taught Darryl Zanuck, as a matter of fact. He taught me how to ride, and I worked for him for about a month, and he had me do everything with the horse. He had me take care of its hooves and really get to know a horse and be comfortable behind a horse. And I ended up loving horses because of that experience. And then my wife now, Elizabeth Murray, she's a terrific horsewoman.
Being up in the Alabama Hills, which is a magical location, that's where all the Hopalong Cassidys were shot, and Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, even Richard Boone with Have Gun Will Travel. He'd go up there a couple of times a year and just shoot 2 episodes back to back because it looked so wonderful.
Yeah. Also, Gunga Din was shot there.
Sure.
That was one of my favorite movies.
Oh, everybody's. George Stevens. But Henry Hathaway had filmed up there before. He did Lives of a Bengal Lancer with Gary Cooper. And in fact, the river scene where you're talking to Chill and you first meet his daughter, that is the same location that was used in True Grit that Hathaway shot.
Oh, my gosh.
It's just a spectacular look to it, and just wonderful. What was the response when that film first came out?
Well, it was very good. We received excellent notices. It compared it favorably to High Noon, as a matter of fact. And it was very, very gratifying.
You're in Spain.
Yeah.
Kid Rodello, the cast, you had Janet Leigh and Broderick Crawford, known for his Western roles.
Yes.
and Richard Carlson, who also directed, was in it too.
It was an interesting thing because Broderick had a fondness for the bottle. And what was interesting to watch them, he would come up and he'd put his foot in the stirrup and he'd step up on the horse and it'd fall down. So that was interesting. Oh yeah, good.
Here it is. Okay.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. That's great.
All right. I'll bet Tom Betts, who brought this, is going to want you to sign this later on.
Okay, I'll be happy.
You know, I remember Broderick Crawford falling out of the car in Highway Patrol, too. And speaking of needing to work and shoot really early, you did a film with Alan Ladd, too, later in his career, One Foot in Hell.
Yes.
That was a vengeful movie as well.
Well, the interesting thing is that I was hired to play the part that he played. And they came to me one day and they said, would you switch to play the drunk in the show? And then we can get Alan Ladd to play your part. And I said, Shane? I said, that's terrific. Okay, we'll do that. So that's what we do. We switch our
Wouldn't that have
roles.
been the time to say, no, I'm walking?
That would have been, yes. That could have been very well. But he had a very serious drinking problem. And he had this trick he used to do is that he'd have his stand-in come out and hand him a glass, and he'd drink out of it. And it said, water. He said, and he'd say, would you like some? And he'd give it to me to have a sip of, to prove it was water. And then he would be slipped a different cup, and it was not water. So I was playing a drunk, but it was pretty hard to compete with a real drunk.
A series that I love that has never been in syndication, but is back on Get TV right now. Don Murray stars in with Otis Young, called The Outcast. Yeah. That's a great series.
Well, thank you. That was...
And if anybody has ever seen Django Unchained, it's about a black bounty hunter, which is what The Outcast is all about.
Yeah.
Way ahead of its
time. Otis Young.
Otis Young.
A wonderful actor. Yes. Very interesting character. Real fun. I remember one thing that he was talking about having nightmares, bad dreams, and he said, I didn't have this nightmare. He says, and this train is coming by, and the train is loaded with my sins. And there was a conductor on the train, and he was pointing to different characters on the train, and he would say, what about this, and what about that, and what about this and that? What about this, and what about that, and what about this and that? that was Otis Young.
Well, he was good in the show.
Yeah, he was. He was very good in the show.
Yeah, and in fact, it really was radical at the time. You're calling him boy. The relationship, you fought in the Civil War. He was an ex-slave, fought for the North, and you guys come together and go apart. It seems like several times in each episode. But wonderful action and terrific locations. You shot up at Red Wall, and I think it seemed like every Western town in Hollywood you all must have gone to because you're on the road. It wasn't like Dodge City and Gunsmoke where you're in one place.
No,
you guys were moving around.
Yeah. That was an interesting circumstance because the network, which was ABC, they came to my agent and they said, we have 3 scripts. here, and whichever one of these three scripts your client, Don, will do, that's the one we'll produce, and we'll produce it for a year, no pilot. You don't have to make a pilot. We'll give you a whole year guarantee, and that's it. And the reason I closed this one is because it had the black man was a leading role. He wasn't just a supporting actor, which was, I don't think it ever happened before on television.
I think I Spy beat it by a year.
I Spy we did, yes.
But right. Look what happened to Bill Cosby.
yeah, right.
You know?
Right.
But the Outcast, you all had wonderful character actors. Ruth Roman and John Daner. John Daner is great. Slim Pickens, Burr DeBenning, Charlie Deerkop. It goes on and on and on, all the great people you got to work with.
Yeah, we did.
There was this one episode where you're fighting, it's a bare-knuckle fist fight with Michael Conrad, the big guy who later was on Hill Street Blues.
Right, yeah.
And that's you.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that. I did a little boxing and did quite a lot of sparring and had one real fight that was supposed to be sparring and turned out to be a real fight.
Wow.
That was interesting.
Well, those shows are good, and they had another level to them compared to most of the Westerns at that time because of your black co-star.
Yeah, it's true. Also, the writing was so good. I think that's what made the series so good. It was such good scripts.
A lot of actors, when they had a series like that, decide to direct an episode. Did you ever want to direct?
No. No, I did direct a movie called The Cross and the Switchblade with Pat Boone. But at that time, I didn't want to direct anything that I played a leading role in at that time. Later on, I did.
You did a film that starred Steve McQueen and Lee Remick. You'd done a couple films with Lee, but Steve McQueen at this time was he was the biggest star in the world, I think. And
yeah, he was a very popular star at the time.
And it's almost autobiographical, Baby, the Rain Must Fall, for Steve.
Right, it was.
Was he difficult to work with?
No, he wasn't difficult to work with. We had kind of an interesting experience is that we were both training as boxers at the same time. And we did a little sparring session, and his stunt man, who was a heavyweight and a real strong guy, he kept on asking me to spar. And I said, no, I'm not going to spar with you. He had a reputation of being a barroom brawler. I said, I'm not going to spar with you. But he kept on asking me, so I finally sparred with him, and we had headgear on. And as soon as I said round one, he came out, and it was, I saw that he wasn't sparring. He was trying to knock me out. And so I had to, just to keep him away from me, I had to keep on hitting him harder and harder. And we were in a real fight. And after we took our headgear off, his eye was like a plum that was over right and wrong like this. And his face was so distorted that he couldn't do his stunt the next day. He lost...
I'll bet he was surprised.
He lost $500 for that stunt.
Did you ever spar with Steve?
Yeah, I did spar with Steve, and his stuntman was much better.
You also did a remake of a wonderful Gary Cooper, Gene Arthur movie, The Plainsman. where you played Wild Bill Hickok.
Yeah. Abby Dalton
was Calamity Jane.
Yeah, she was wonderful.
Yeah.
I think she was the best thing about that movie. Her performance was terrific.
No, she was really talented. I wonder, why that film didn't do better, The Plainsman.
Well, that was made as a television movie, and then Universal, the producers, decided to release it theatrically instead. So that's what happened with that movie.
But it was in color. It was great. It looked good.
Yeah.
It looked good. You look great in that outfit, too.
Well, I couldn't compete with Gary Cooper, though. Gary Cooper was great in it.
Oh, he was good. Now, Gary Cooper, and there's so many great stars that were from the golden age of Hollywood. Were there favorites that you had?
My favorite actor in Hollywood was John Garfield.
Mm-hmm.
It was just about his personality that I really identified with, really liked. Mm-hmm. And he had a bad heart, of course, so he died quite young.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was blacklisted for a while because his wife was a member of the Communist Party. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't, but he was blacklisted because
it reflected on
wife.
him, and it limited what he was doing
yeah,
for a while.
It was. Yeah. And I was very sad when he died because he was too young.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever meet him?
No, I never met him. Mm-hmm. He died before I got into movies.
Mm-hmm. The films that you've done have left a wonderful legacy, and again, like I said, From Hell to Texas is a classic that more people should see.
Well, that was, and the writer of that was a wonderful writer, and he wrote one of the best movies that I've done, feature films, Advise and Consent, Preminger film.
Sure, Otto Preminger. Now, there's a cast that Henry Fonda and Charles Lawton and Franchot Tone, just a great movie, too. Yeah. Now, that got a lot of award nominations, I think, too, didn't it?
It did. Yeah. And the funny thing of that is my wife, Elizabeth Murray, who's not with me today, my son Michael is here, but she stayed home so Michael could come. And she was on the set, and Preminger saw her and said, and the day that she visited me on the set, she was on the cover of McCall's magazine. And fabulous, beautiful picture of her. And it was there in the lobby, it was on the magazine stand. And she came and visited, and Otto Preminger saw her and said, "Oh, Miss Johnson, I want you to be in my movie." And she said, "No, thank you." Voila, why not? I said, "Because you yell at actors, and I don't like to be yelled at." And he said, "Well, I don't yell at actors, I just yell at the crew." And I said, "Yeah, like Charles Lawton, the Chief Grip, like Henry Fonda, the makeup man." Yeah, that's right.
Did he yell at you?
He only yelled at me once.
Why?
Because I said, "Excuse me, maybe this is none of my business, but you're right, it's none of your business, just act."
Well, he played a lot of Nazis in the World War II movies.
He was the only Nazi directing a movie about democracy.
Don, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you. Thank you.